This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
I have my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Casvin, to thank for pointing out to me, outside of my parents, that I needed to check my attitude. I remember the day I was lingering behind the class. They'd either gone off to lunch or out to recess, and for whatever reason, I was taking my time to get myself out of the classroom. And Mr. Casvin was talking about potato pancakes that he was excited about having for dinner. And Mr. Casvin was Jewish, and I think it was during one of the Jewish holidays. So his wife was going to be making these potato pancakes. And I thought that sounded gross. And so I made my thoughts vocal and made a lot of noise about it, the way I did when I was in 6th grade. And he slammed into me, not physically, but he just came at me and said, "You know what, Lyman? You need to get an attitude check." I was stunned. I mean, he might as well have slapped me in the face. And again, teachers are not supposed to be cruel or say things anymore. I mean, we live in such a crazy environment now for teachers. But back then, he could say that, and he did. And it shook me in a way that I needed to be shook, quite honestly. I eventually got myself out of the classroom, went outside. I don't remember the process of thinking about what he said to me, but I do remember the event, and it did traumatize me in a way that got me to change my attitude. And it is April here at the Play Your Position podcast. The word for this month is attitude. I've been thinking a lot about words that start with A, since that's the theme I've kind of gotten on. Last month was mindset and money. I didn't do it in January. I started doing it in February, but I like alliteration, so I figured I'm going to keep the trend going. So this month, attitude is going to be the driving word when I do these solo episodes. And you guys seem to be liking these. I'm seeing my download numbers going up, and I really appreciate you engaging with my content here at PYP. I work really hard to think about what to put out when I do a solo episode. My interviews with awesome guests speak for themselves. If you haven't caught the latest round, definitely go back, check out Jenna Cooper's episode that just dropped. She and I had an amazing time. We laughed a lot, and we talked a lot about the things that many people are thinking about these days, namely, how do you show up and be fully yourself in a high-tech environment that seems to have built-in limitations to being truly yourself. You know, it's a 2D kind of a world. Yes, there's video, but the point is that there's this barrier that still exists. It's not like real life when you're in a room, you're engaged in a workshop or some kind of seminar, or you're at a big convention center with lots of people running around. I mean, that hasn't been a reality for over a year now. And a lot of people I know are chomping at the bit to get back out and actually have face-to-face conversations. My point is that having the right attitude is everything. It's everything. And Mr. Casvin was absolutely 100% spot on when he called me out on my big, noisy protests about how gross potato pancakes sound. And it's out of ignorance. I didn't know. I'd never had a potato pancake. My 12-year-old mind couldn't wrap my thoughts around what is that? Because for me, pancakes were always blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup, and a potato pancake just sounded weird and different and not very tasty to me. So attitude, that was my first big introduction to the power of our attitude for the overall quality of life we experience, to the kinds of relationships that we have, to playing at a higher level, tapping into a higher frequency. When your attitude is good, you tend to have better day. When your attitude is in the tank, typically not as good. Now, I titled today's episode, "And Then There Are Days You Cry," because let's just be honest, there are days when you're going to cry. And no matter how great your attitude is, no matter how much mindset work you do, no matter how many hours of meditation you engage in, or journaling or self-reflection, the emotions of sadness, of grief, of frustration, of disappointment, of longing are going to find their way into your system. And I don't think you can think yourself out of crying. I don't think that's healthy. Now, there may be people who disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. I know that a really good cry is one of the most powerful experiences as far as releasing the toxic shit that's built up inside. It's a way of cleansing. I think, why else would we have the ability to cry? We were created with that mechanism. It serves a purpose. And one of the purposes I'm convinced it serves is a cleansing mechanism. It is a way of us of literally shedding out of our bodies the stuff that we just can't hold on to anymore. And technology, I've talked about this at length with my guests. I've also had many episodes on my own where I've addressed the challenges of technology, the brilliance of technology. We tend to see the highlight reels only. We tend to focus on the metrics that are associated with our social accounts, things like the number of likes, the number of followers, the number of fans, the algorithmic percentages. Has your site gone up in views, gone down in views? Are you converting? On and on and on it goes. And at the end of the day, we are just human beings. Not that there's anything minimal about being a human being, but we are human beings at the end of the day with a wide range of feelings and thoughts and emotions and such. And our attitudes certainly play a role. And the fact remains, not every day you're going to have a great attitude, despite being a practitioner of positivity, of moving forward, of future-oriented things, of feeling the moment, right? Of being present. The law of opposites suggests that unless we have the dark emotions, we cannot have the light emotions. So dark emotions, again, are things like anger, sadness, depression, despair, grief. The light emotions would be love, joy, euphoria, those kinds of wonderful feelings. We've got to have, it's the duality. When I taught literature, we looked at dualities all the time in the texts that we read. And I worked with my students on helping them leverage duality in their writing because it's powerful. It's powerful when you can create that tension between the hero and the villain, for example. Think about your favorite shows, a favorite movie. I guarantee you duality was at play. And I also guarantee you that not every character in that movie had a great attitude from start to finish. Oftentimes, the best stories are about the transformation that a character or group experiences by going through the challenges, by facing obstacles, by having to come face to face with their truest selves, for examining their belief system, for thinking about their thoughts. All that good stuff is at play in the entertainment that we consume, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. And so, yeah, your attitude isn't always going to be great. Just like it wasn't for me that day in 6th grade when Mr. Kasman called me out and made me realize for the first time that what came out of my mouth could impact or would impact my experience. I felt shocked at first, and then I felt badly. I probably felt some shame. I'm sure my cheeks got red because that was one of my default physiological responses when attention was put on me, whether it was positive or negative. So this month, I will be exploring the way our attitude influences how we show up, how we play our positions. And just to give you some context, the way I have been taught about attitude, in other words, what is attitude exactly? Well, the way that I have recently learned to think about this word is really, really awesome. It was like light bulb moments going off. I mean, we're not just talking little light bulbs. It was, like the Hollywood sign all lit up and just pop, pop, pop all over the place. And our attitudes are made up of three things. An attitude is made up of your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. It's a composite. It's not just what you think about. It's also what you feel as a result of what you think about, and then what you do as a result of the feelings. So going back to crying, we have thoughts about something, and we assign thoughts of sad, or we feel sad or angry or frustrated because of the thoughts we're having about something that's happening more often than not outside of us. There's some triggering event. There's something that we see, hear, maybe actually touch, or feel. You're out walking and you roll your ankle, right? So that's going to send you into a tizzy emotionally. And then it's the action. So the three things, and we act based on our feelings. So I was feeling that day, well, first of all, I was thinking in my head, ew, potato pancakes sound disgusting, which made me feel uncomfortable, which made me say what I said. And that was all unconscious on my part, default mechanism. Now at home, I could get away with that kind of, running my mouth at the dinner table. And my parents tolerated it to a point. But I do remember both of them in their own ways calling me and my brother out on some of the stuff when we pushed the envelope too far. But isn't it interesting when I think back that it took my sixth grade teacher to get me to pay attention versus the repetition that I'd heard from my parents, year after year to, oh, you might want to think about that attitude, Mary Lou, right? Sometimes it takes somebody who is a different kind of authority figure or is a complete stranger who, for whatever reason, calls you out or makes you think about something differently. So interesting. But again, that's the sequence of events. I was thinking, the trigger for me was him talking about potato pancakes. In my mind, I thought gross, which made me feel uncomfortable, and the need to say something, which was, again, a knee-jerk reaction versus a thoughtful response. Again, 12 years old, growing up, learning those tough lessons. I know some adults, though, and I bet you do too, who aren't aware of how much their attitude affects the quality of their life, and also aren't aware of the three components that make up our attitude. I'm so grateful that I have learned this, that it's not too late for me. I feel like the last, once I became a professional in my mid-20s, that I've had a pretty good attitude more times than not. However, I can definitely look back at certain times in my life when I definitely did not have a great attitude, and I suffered the consequences. I paid the price, in some cases, a really hefty price. However, I don't dwell on that, and I don't let it affect me now because it is the past. I've made peace with decisions I've made, and those past mistakes and decisions help inform me about what I do today, right? That is the ultimate goal, is that every day you can show up and be just a little bit better than you were the day before. Keep making progress towards those big goals. And keeping your attitude in check can make all the difference in the world. And if you need to cry, you've got my permission. Not that you need it, but I'm just saying, don't feel badly if you need to cry. It is a healthy response. It helps keep the attitude in check. I am convinced of that. So team, today, tomorrow, the rest of this month, the rest of your life, keep in mind your attitude matters. It's made up of your thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's okay to cry. And if you're committed to the path of playing your position to the best of your ability, to showing up always as yourself, you will win at this game called life. This is Mary Lou Kaser. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Got a great key offensive strategy you like to share? Write to us at coach@pyppodcast.com or on Twitter, use #PYP and let us know how you're running your ball into the end zone for those game-winning touchdowns.